in defense of people pleasers. I have been thinking about why this happens and why at least I have this tendency to try to make sure that everything is okay, that everyone is happy, that everything is just like positive feelings, blah 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 all the time. Like I feel like I have this huge intolerance to kind of conflict and bad things, which it does not always translate in me trying to solve things. It more like translates in me trying to avoid conflicts and or trying to avoid negative feelings. Other than trauma and having just a bad relationship with negativity in general, when I dwell in the world, I try to really see things from other people's perspective. And it's not in this very politician way of like, oh, I want to hear your voice and I want to know what you're feeling. But I am just so curious about how other people experience being alive. What does it feel like to look through your eyes? What does it feel like to have your thoughts? How do your thoughts come to be? And what are the things that you notice when you walk into a room? Like these are questions I am asking myself all the time about other people, and I've tried here and there to get them to answer. But I noticed that sometimes it's also really hard to answer these questions, right? Like I've asked people about what they dream. I've asked people about how they think, like just the form, the structure, how their thoughts look like. Whatever they give me, I realize I'll always end up just picturing it through my mind. It's just that frustration that I'll never get quite to entirely be someone else. I guess perhaps that's the goal, like just another kind of embodiment. Just genuinely seeing like another type of reality from other eyes, because I refuse to believe that we all see things in the same way. Like just because I have vision, it just feels so my own, right? And that awareness is frustrating. So I see that things that I do in order to try to satisfy this behavior end up being kind of people pleasing activities, which are not socially great, right? Like just I don't know, if we're together at a party and then like you want to go do something, I'll probably most likely say yes, like especially if I'm in your company. Like if I am fully alone, then I'm probably just kind of doing whatever and following my instincts. But if I am with someone else, then I'll probably just want to kind of follow them around and do whatever they want to do for the night, just see where we go, because I'm there for the adventure. But obviously sometimes like it can even be more fun if I put my own input into it. So I won't do this all the time, but I do catch myself doing it, like just kind of following someone around, doing exactly what they want to do. If it's a conversation and someone has some sort of opinion on something, I find myself agreeing more often than not, just to see where the thought process is going, right? I guess I try to exist in the world as if I wasn't there, like as if my knowing something or experiencing something had no real effect on the things that are happening. But I come to realize that that is a pretty unrealistic way of experiencing things, because my very physical existence, my very being there, like already has an effect on whatever is happening. Like things would happen always in a different way if I wasn't around to see them, which is kind of frustrating, because it means that ultimately in my goal of like just seeing how things happen and how things just unfold, I am always kind of an impediment to that, because they are always, not that I am always affecting a situation, but obviously like people will just say things around you, and then there's things that they won't say if you're around, and people will act certain ways if you're around, and then there's ways that they won't act if you're around, or they might act differently with a different group of people. And so yeah, I used to have this a lot as well, like uh in high school too, where I just kind of wanted to be places just to see how people were acting, obviously. But and I would try to just disappear into the background as much as possible, just kind of to observe, which is creepy, obviously. It is creepy behavior, but I promise it's coming from like this nice, curious place. Like I'm not doing anything with this information. I'm not like stalking anyone. It's genuinely just like a curiosity for life happening. Also because I feel that very real on myself as well. Like obviously the kind of person that I will be is very different depending on who I'm around. Um, the kind of interactions that I have is different depending on the kind of group that I'm doing, the kind of activity that I'm doing, the kind of energy that I'm feeling from people. And it's not something that is fully conscious. Like I just notice, I catch myself doing it. I catch myself being different just with different groups of people, and then it's probably just something in the moment or the personalities that are together that kind of births these different versions of myself. And at moments it's been concerning for me, because it's like, who am I when there's no one around? who am I when there's no one else to define kind of the situation? And this sense of self is just so disintegrating. And I'm reading these things and like posthumanism right now, and like deleuze, who talks about this like rhizome way of being, and these, these different philosophies that talk about amalgamation of a being rather than just like this unity, that it's like, oh, this one body and this one mind, and then like the world is composed of a bunch of bodies and minds. Whereas in other philosophies it's more like we all just kind of are constantly composing and decomposing each other in a way. And so that's kind of like the beingness is to be found somewhere in those interactions rather than like in this like one composite thing that you can very easily pinpoint. I think that's where those people pleasing tendencies come from. Like they're just the fact that I I am very different versions of whoever myself is whenever I am with other people, and I I act in the world as if there was no I, like there was no effect to what I could, to me knowing things or me doing things. Like it's more like we, like a constant we, right? It's like you could tell me like your deepest secrets right now and it would be okay. Like, I mean, I guess there would be a side of me that is judging. Like there's clearly sides of judgment because I do have opinions on things, but there are moments when these are suspended. Like they don't really matter, and all I can do is just try to use language as best as I can to completely grasp a situation. But then that ignores the fact that there are situations that cannot be grasped by language, and that I, maybe if it was like perfectly described by some standard, I still wouldn't fully get it, because I still wouldn't fully get what it is like to inhabit um the self that is experiencing, or to be in the set of those experiences, right? Like I can only get so much. I can only get like a chewed version or some gossip or something like that, um which is unfortunate. I think that's what I'm grappling with right now, like that acceptance of letting go of parts of life that I cannot control and that I cannot own, because like knowledge is not something that can be owned as well. Knowledge is simply something that is, I feel like, almost embodied in some way, even though I'm also talking about like this kind of like lack of embodiment and lack of unity. That's the difficulty with this kind of language that I think I need to learn more about in order to understand what how to speak of it properly without being confusing, because I hate how confusing the language can be in these, and how they're like just constantly talking about like again, amalgamation is the best way that I could put it, like this composite being, but then also going back to talks about the I and the self and the mind that experiencing things. But I feel that something there, that when I'm with someone else, like some, as okay, I have to talk in normal terms because, right, that's how language is. So how language goes right now, we think about ourselves as like, I am this one mind, and then I go into a room and there's another mind there, and then there's more minds, and then we all can kind of share thoughts, and then whatever we share, we're processing through our minds, and then it comes back out into the world to be processed by other minds, and so on and so forth. So it's a very kind of like, I give, you take, you give, I take. She gives, I take, blah, 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 blah. And like that's kind of like how it's always like this one way thing, one way messaging, one way messaging. But then when you break it down in such a way, life does not work like that. Like I don't ever feel like I'm just in a space and I am like singularly taking each stimuli, like, okay, tree and person and dog, and then like it's all kind of getting translated, and then I'm like throwing something out there with like thoughts and oxygen and dead cells, and then like these things are just having like very individual effects all the time, but it's just happening at such a massive scale that it's happening really fast, right? I don't think that's how I experience the world. I genuinely feel like whenever there is a space, it is always a shared space, and there might be simultaneous things happening. There might be even one thing happening, but it's happening, well, the present, right? Like there's a present happening to both of us at the same time, but then like that both of us just becomes like the one, um yeah, the one moment you could say. And we are all kind of pieces like of a moment, but not quite pieces, right? Like we just become the moment. And then when I'm alone, I well, it's just another moment, but then I feel kind of like merging in with the walls and merging in with thoughts and merging in with silence as well. And I use emerging language as if I was this like separate thing that like goes into a space. But I think what I mean more like is more like this, you know, like life is constantly this, which is kind of rhizomatic. Is that why people pleasing is bad? I don't know. People pleasing gets rid of the subject because like there's no strong sense of identity that keeps you as an identifiable piece of person. So that's bad because it kind of goes against the grain that we've been building for so long. So I don't know if then if people who complain about people pleasing are more Cartesian in that sense. Or I don't know that this was clear at all. But this is my defense of people pleasing for the sake of a self, for the sake of some identity that is somewhere in the world, I guess. This is a work in progress.